That was such a better introduction than what I give. Yeah, I've given some pretty terrible introductions. My name's Rodney. I'm an addict.
Hey, Rodney.
It's going to be really hard to talk about, the last 27 years in about 20 minutes. I'm going to give it a shot, though. Just kidding. I'm going to cut out a whole bunch of it. After I got clean, a couple things became really apparent to me, especially, after working a first step, like the symptoms of the disease, the obsession, the compulsion, the self-centeredness. The awareness of those three things really got me thinking about, like, where this addiction started, And for me personally, the things that brought those out initially weren't drugs. Believe it or not, it was a Pokemon game on Game Boy Color. The obsession, the compulsion, the total self-centeredness were there from like third grade, just there. My poor mother had to listen to me talk about Pokemon for years on end while I was in the grip of that addiction. Fast forward, and then I got introduced to drugs, and then it kind of took a whole nother turn. High school, I didn't really fit in too well. There's a couple people I knew, they kind of drank and smoked a little bit, and I'm like, you know what, they seem like cooler than the people I'm hanging out with. So I started hanging out with them, started smoking, started drinking. That sort of progressed. Shortly after that, sophomore, junior year of high school, is drinking every day after school, smoking before school. And from that point on, it never slowed down. It never slowed down from that point. It just got worse and worse and worse. Graduated high school somehow. Got accepted to a college somehow, and then got kicked out of that college. What had happened there, I'd got caught smoking in the dorms, and they're like, we're going to drug test you. I'm like, okay. So then I just drank myself stupid for the next, 6 months and got kicked out of school that way. That way, that tells me right there that it doesn't really matter what I'm using. Like, my life is going to be unmanageable because I have the experience to tell me that, doesn't matter if I'm just doing this or this or this. Either way, there's going to be consequences, and there's going to be unmanageability, and there's going to be, emotional pain, for me personally. After I got kicked out of that particular university, I, kind of just bummed around, floated around for a little while, sold drugs so I could do drugs, so I could sell drugs. Just that cycle that we all know really, really well. Eventually, that got old. I got so paranoid that I thought, and this may have happened, I don't know. It seemed real at the time, but I thought I was being followed by the police officers. So one day, I just decided to drive to Colorado in the middle of the night. So me and my girlfriend at the time did just that. We got a bunch of drugs, drove the entire way. It was 2009 going into 2010, right after New Year's. There was a gigantic blizzard. We were driving this two-door Honda Civic 80 miles an hour through this just, whiteout storm. There's SUVs flipped over on the side. Just cars basically, off the road all the way into Des Moines. And then it kind of cleared up a little bit, but we didn't care. We were out of our minds, really, just completely out of our minds. And then we somehow made it there without killing each other, and then stayed there for 2 years. The geographical change I thought would help, and it didn't. It didn't. I was still there, and the people were still there. They just had different faces. And eventually the disease progressed into harder and harder drugs. We had lived in Aurora, Colorado, and then we moved a little bit further away from there. And, just consistently downhill the entire time. Like, my life was just consistently downhill, at sometimes faster than other times, but just always downhill. And at one point, my girlfriend at the time, her grandma had gotten sick. She decided to fly home. She flew home. Got immediately dope sick as soon as she got home. Her parents wondered what was going on. So they took her to the hospital. She was 75 pounds. I was like 140. I was still in Colorado, but she was withdrawing from like every drug you could imagine. And then, I got news of all that, and, I was, as devastated as I could be. And, from that point on, I think I tried to stop like every day. And I couldn't make it more than like 12 hours at that point. I think I quit for the longest in that like month and a half for maybe an entire 24 hours was the longest I went. And every day I was trying to quit and trying to quit and trying to quit. And it just never worked. I was living with this other kid who had kind of moved in with me. We were, shooting dope, whatever. We ended up getting like some mescaline. And if anybody knows anything about psychedelics or, peyote or, to a certain extent like LSD or anything like that. So I took this mescaline and basically like, there's really no way to describe like the feeling I had like at that moment or that like, span of time while I was on it, but all like the lies and like the rationalizations that like I had been telling myself up until that point, they didn't work anymore, and I saw myself and I saw the situation I was living in for what it was and not what I was telling myself it was. And there were just completely, reality and what I consider reality were just so far apart that it scared the shit out of me. It really scared the shit out of me. That proverbial moment of clarity came while I was under the influence of, that particular drug. The next morning, I woke up, I called my family. I said, I can't do this anymore. I need help. I came home, got into treatment like the day after I got home. That was December 4th, 2011. I've been to treatment one time. I've picked up one white key tag. And some of the other things, like, all right, so that story qualifies me. But there's some other stuff that, I've never been arrested. I've never overdosed. And I've got one white key tag, And and I'm only saying that for the person that's in a similar situation to that may be thinking, like, I shouldn't be here because I haven't done A, B, and C. Like, that's bullshit, The only desire to be here is, the only requirement to be here is the desire to stop using. When I did come into the program, I was still with this girl. She had been clean for a little while. I had gotten clean too. And everything was great with the world. And we were going to meetings, and I didn't have a sponsor, but, whatever. And then I got a sponsor, and then he relapsed. And I was like, oh, whatever. Then I got another sponsor, and he relapsed. Basically, like, I heard this joke one time where it's like, if you want to lose a sponsor, you give him an assignment because you'll never hear from him again. Basically, for me, it was like, if you want your sponsor to relapse, do an assignment. And so I worked my first step 3 times with 3 different sponsors. The third sponsor didn't end up relapsing. He ended up just dropping me because he had too much on his plate. The moral of the story with sponsorship for me was that, like, early on in my recovery, I got this understanding that like the people I couldn't expect the people in here to be perfect, and I couldn't expect somebody to carry me, and I couldn't give myself an excuse to use, because I had one there. For somebody who's new and has abandonment issues and all of that stuff, to have 3 people in a row sort of drop you, it feels a lot like abandonment. And early on in recovery, it was really easy for me to start thinking like, are these people full of shit? Should I even keep doing this? Like, these people I'm supposed to trust are not trustworthy. Luckily for me, my desire to stay clean was higher than my desire to use again. So I stayed clean, got a new sponsor. I've been with him now for, probably coming up on 4 years. I've worked steps 1 through 9 with him, going on to 10. Started working traditions with him. And that is one of the most rewarding relationships I have in my life right now. It goes my mom, my sponsor, and my friends. And, and that's really like more than I could have ever asked for when I came into the program. Luckily for me, that's not all there is, though. As far as, like the steps go, I had a pretty solid understanding of the first step, seeing as that I worked it like 3 or 4 times. The second step for me, the second step for me, the first time I worked it, because I ended up working that one like twice. The second step for me, when it came down to it, was really like a really acute awareness that like the insanity was the way that I thought and the way that I handled myself and the situations that I got myself in. Like, that was the insanity. It broke down for me into like my thinking. My thinking was the problem. And it would, it has failed me every time. And in order for me to not be insane, I need to change the way that I think. And doing that, happened by continuing through the rest of the steps. The third step, I've been at a couple third step meetings this month, and by far my favorite step. After working a third step, basically like the enjoyment that I got out of life came back. Life became worth living again. All the worries and anxieties I had about everything kind of fell away, and just like this new excitement sort of overtook me. Around that time, I think at this point I may have had like, 9 months, 10 months, something like that. But this girl that I had been dating, she ended up leaving me, and I was really devastated for a while. Me and her, we had been together for like 6 years, and I didn't really know what to do. I really didn't know what to do, and I called people, and this is where, like, this situation right here is exactly why you come to meetings early and you fellowship after meetings, because when that shit happened, it's like, I didn't have my using friends anymore because I'd completely given all of them up, regardless of whether they're a good influence or a bad influence. I just started from scratch. So if I had not come to meetings early, been of service, stayed late, and really fostered these relationships I made in the program, I wouldn't know who the fuck to call. There was a period of time after that I stayed at my friend's house for 3 days, just stayed there, because I didn't want to be at home, and I wanted to hide and all of that. But again, when it comes back to the steps, it's like that first, second, and third step helped me get through that. Just really basically at times like that, it's like my friends helped me, and it was just hanging on. At that point, just hanging on. And then shortly after that, a few months after that, my grandma died. And, that was rough because she was my only living grandparent. But it's again, in that situation, the relationships I had made in the program are what helped me through that, if I didn't stick around to make friends, I wouldn't be clean right now. It's that fucking simple. If I didn't have the friends that I have today, I would not be clean right now. you know, when I got out of treatment, I thought it was going to be meetings in the basement with a bunch of old people and, you know, boring conversations about the war. But you know, it wasn't that at all. I got really lucky. I got really lucky that I found this program. I got really lucky that I have had the friends that I've had and that I currently have. You know, and after that, and continuing to work some steps, I began to sort of, you know, experiment with different things that I like to do. So it was like, all right, disc golfing. I used to like to disc golf. I used to like to get really fucked up and go disc golfing. But I had made some friends in the program that actually did it, you know, clean. And there was actually an event at one point in Illinois Valley where it was like every third Sunday, there'd be disc golfing and a campfire meeting. And, you know, those were the relationships that helped me through those other things, were those ones that I made at these events, you know. So disc golfing became like a huge part of like my early recovery, ironically enough. You know, and then like Lauren was talking about, at a certain point, it's like, all right, I had played volleyball all through high school, eventually stopped because I was getting high, and I thought, well, why don't I just get like a recreational team together with like my mom and like my sister and see how we do. And like we sucked. We were really bad. And I was rusty. But I managed to get like one guy from the program to come out and play, and it was so much fun just to like be out on the court and kind of rediscovering this passion I once had. And then since then, it's like now I play, you know, when I can. I was playing every Monday and every Wednesday, and every Monday was in like this competitive league with collegiate players, and like everything's come back, you know, everything's come back. Like I'm a competitive, you know, athlete again. That was something I never thought would happen. You know, I invited Lauren out to play that one day. That was cool. I had fun with that. You know, and then again, this all relates back to the program because in the summer, every other Sunday, it's like NA beach volleyball, and I go and I dominate. You know? But anyways, it's, how long have I been talking here? Just keep going. You sure? Do I have to? So anyways, you know, after sort of like rediscovering those passions and stuff like that, you know, I started venturing back into like, you know, the music scene, going to concerts, stuff like that. I didn't have, my first concert I went to clean, I had, I think I had like just over a year clean, or a little bit more than that. And, I mean, the band sucked, but like I had a good time, you know? I had a really good time. And I'm like, okay, so this is possible, because the type of music that I'd been into before, like there was obviously a big drug scene that sort of revolved around that music. But since getting clean, it's like these same bands also have these same like groups of people that go, you know, that live all over the country, that follow these bands around, that choose to remain abstinent from drugs and alcohol at these concerts, you know. So like I can go to a Phish concert, I can go to a Grateful Dead concert and meet people there that aren't using, you know, and that's amazing for me. At the point in my recovery where I am now, it's like the more live music I get to, the better, you know. I was at a concert on Wednesday in Bloomington, drove down there. The week before that, I saw 2 nights in the city at a show. The weekend before that, I saw another show. And it's like, this is the stuff that like keeps me in the moment, you know. Like when we talk about spirituality, my spirituality is like a couple of things. It's like a connection with the present moment. It's a relationship with reality. It's these things that like just keep me grounded, and keep my perspective like, you know, in a sort of healthy realm. You know, and music definitely does that for me. You know, and then I found a way to make it like something that is so much more rewarding because I get to bring these people that I've met and that have helped me in my recovery to these shows and show them that, like, you can do this stuff. You know, this is something that we can do. I didn't come into the program. Well, initially I came into the program to hide away from life, you know, because I thought that's what it meant. You know, today I know that, like, coming into the program has given me this life to do the things I want to do, to, you know, be, like, go see the concerts I want to see, to have the experiences I want to experience. You know, just because I don't do drugs doesn't mean I have to avoid every single concert, you know. There's obviously, like, some concerts that are probably best if I don't go to. But you know, that's just one more thing that the program's given me, you know. And through going to these things, it's helped me develop, like, a trust in myself and a trust in the work that I've put into myself, and, you know, to trust the program that I've developed. Other stuff, I guess I could talk about service work. I'm not going to brag about service work. I don't do too much, but right now I'm doing H&I. And the H&I that I'm doing, it's in Joliet, and I wasn't going to do H&I until I worked my 9th step with my sponsor. I mean, I'd definitely fill in and stuff here and there, but he brought it to my attention that, like, you know, some of these places that I've stole from don't really need, like, my couple $100 back. You know, it might be better to do this, like, amends to society by giving back through H&I, you know, and you know, that was really cool to think about. And just, like, speaking today, like, I was really fucking nervous at first when I first started doing H&I. Yesterday, though, I went. It was just, you know, it was one of the most rewarding experiences I've had as far as, like, service work and giving back goes. Other than that, like, meetings, rides, helping the newcomer. If this is your first meeting, keep coming back. The trick to staying clean is this, alright? You want to know the trick? The trick, okay, is to not use. Get a sponsor, work steps, make meetings, and make friends, you know? That's what it is. That's how I've done it. And, you know, I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks, everybody, for letting me ramble for a little while. I think I did an alright job wrapping it up pretty quick here. Alright, thanks, guys.